This podcast highlights finding on analysis of the Auditor General's report for the financial year 2013-14, 2014-15 and 2015-16 for the National Government of Kenya, which was undertaken by the Institute of Economic Affairs in 2019. We will focus on the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. As pertains to total expenditure, for 2013-14, that is before devolution, the total expenditure for the ministry was 34.7 billion. In 2014-15, where the ministry was divided into three departments, State Department of Agriculture got 30.8 billion, State Department of Livestock 5.2 billion, while State Department of Fisheries got 3.2 billion, which adds up to 39 billion. In the year 2015-16, we maintain the same expenditure, where State Department of Agriculture gets 30.8 billion, State Department of Livestock 5.2 billion, while State Department of Fisheries maintains 3.2 billion, adding up to 39 billion. In terms of the audit opinions that were given by the Office of the Auditor General, the ministry in 2013-14 got a qualified opinion, while in 2014-15, two ministries received a qualified opinion, while one received an unqualified opinion. So, State Department of Agriculture and Livestock both received qualified opinion, while State Department of Fisheries received an unqualified opinion. In 2015-16, the same was retained, where State Department of Agriculture and Livestock received a qualified opinion, and State Department of Fisheries received an unqualified opinion. We also assessed funded projects by the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, and in 2013-14, 7 out of 12 ministries received a qualified opinion. In 2014-15, the majority opinion was unqualified, where 10 out of 16 donor-funded projects received an unqualified opinion, and in 2015-16, the highest opinion was qualified and adverse, where 5 of each opinion out of 16 was given. In terms of the top violations that are highlighted by the Office of the Auditor General, in 2013-14, the highest violation was failure to reconcile books of account, while in 2014-15 was lack of supporting document, and in 2015-16 was also lack of supporting document. In terms of highest amount queried, in 2013-14, the highest amount queried was 17.6 billion, which represents 51.3% of total amount queried, and 2014-15 was 12.56 billion, which represents 40.7% of total amount queried, and 2015-16 was 8.09 billion, which represents 26.2% of the total queried amount. In 2013-14, we had 12 out of 78 issues that were recurring, while this reduced in 2014-15, where they reduced to 3 out of 41 issues, and 2015-16, 12 out of 69 issues are recurring. Among the total queried amount, 2014-15 had 28.1 billion which was queried, of which this represents 82% of the expenditure. In 2014-15, 26.6 billion shillings was queried, which represents 68% of the expenditure. And in 2015-16, 42.8 billion was queried, which represents 109% of the expenditure. The 109% could be as a result of double entry and recurring issues. The departments that got the best opinion across the 3 years was State Department of Agriculture, which received an unqualified opinion for the year 2014-15 and 2015-16. On the other end, the one that received the worst opinion was Strategic Grain Reserve Fund, which received an adverse opinion, and this one came about as a result of multiplicity of expenses, which included acquisition of maize, gunny bags, agency fees, omission of NCPB, which threatened the sustainability of the fund. We calculated the opportunity costs of some of the amounts that were queried by the Auditor General, and for this we used the example of Strategic Grain Reserve Fund, whereby for 2014-15 and 2015-16, 754,000 bags of maize were stored or obsolete, and calculated against the amount of maize that Kenyans feed per day, we realized that this is equivalent to 6 days of maize to feed Kenyans. Therefore, it would mean that if the stock of maize was not obsolete for each year, we would have enough maize to feed Kenyans for 6 days. In conclusion, we take note that it is possible to achieve clean opinions, which has been demonstrated by State Department of Fisheries, whereby for the 2 years, 2014-15 and 15-16, it received a clean opinion, and 10 out of 16 donor-funded projects in the year 2014-15 received an unqualified opinion, meaning this can be emulated across the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. Again, we realize that some of the recurrent issues requires Parliament action. For example, Agricultural Sector Coordination Unit, ASCU, which is a sector coordination unit, for the past 10 years has not submitted financial statements for audit to the Office of the Auditor General, and therefore such issues need to be resolved. Again, we realize that the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries does not have many youth and women related projects, where we only flagged one in 2015-16 titled Empowerment in Modern Agriculture Program for Youth and Women. We also conclude that issues to do with systemic problems and internal problems need resolving, whereby top violations in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries had to do with lack of supportive document and failure to reconcile books of account, both accounting problems which can be resolved internally.